Prayer by the chaplain.
First, a word from Henry V in Shakespeare's drama. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. And here I would say, we band of brothers and sisters. Let us pray. God of justice and mercy, there are times when a few must bear responsibility for the whole. And so it is for these women and men, together with the governor and their colleagues in the Senate. They must be making major decisions that set the course for all the people of our state. Dear God, I thank you for these members of the House and their aides, the whole House staff, for those making speeches on the floor, for those who listen, consider, and vote, for those who provide security and order, for those who record and process these proceedings. Now, during these final weeks of this year's session, bless them all. Bless them with energy and wisdom, with compassion and a spirit of cooperation. Bless them even with a bit of joy as they anticipate the relief that comes when they have completed their task. Bless these happy few, O God. Amen.
The chaplain for today's session is Reverend Paul Rogers, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and our House chaplain in 2007. Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk will take the roll. Clerk will close the roll. A quorum is present. The clerk will read the journal of the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 88th Session 2013, 45th day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Friday, April 26, 2013.
If there's no objection, further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. Hearing no objection, the journal is approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. Reports of standing committees and divisions. A copy of this order of business has been placed on each member's desk. If there's no objection, the reports will be adopted. Hearing no objection, the reports are adopted. Second reading of Senate bills.
Second reading, Senate File 489.
Second reading. Introduction and first reading of House files. The following House files have been offered for introduction today. The Chief Clerk will report the House files and give them their first reading.
Introduction and first reading of House Files 1811 through 1814.
First reading, House Files 1811 to 1814. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate. This is the Simon motion. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments to Senate File 745, an act relating to state government. Simon moves that the House accede to the request of the Senate and that the Speaker appoint a conference committee of 3 members of the House to meet with the like committee appointed by the Senate on the disagreeing votes of the 2 houses.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed, no. Motion prevails.
Message from the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following Senate file herewith transmitted. Senate File 978, signed Joanne M. Zoff, Secretary of the Senate. First reading.
First reading of Senate files.
Introduction and first reading of Senate File 978, an act relating to education. The bill has been referred to the Committee on Education Finance.
Announcements by the Speaker.
Announcement by the Speaker. The Speaker announced the appointment of the following members of the House to a conference committee on Senate File 1236. Pulowski, Winkler, Rosenthal, Dorholt, and Nornes.
Calendar for the day. The first bill on the calendar for the day is House File 1400. The clerk will report the bill.
House File 1400 on the calendar for the day, the first engrossment, an act relating to public safety.
Representative Paymar.
Mr. Speaker and members, House File 1400 comes from the County Attorneys Association and also for the Minnesota Coalition on Battered Women. It really corrects 4 technical problems in 518B, which deals with orders for protections, harassment orders, and no contact orders. The first thing that the bill does is it strikes the word knowingly from the law if you want to enhance a violation of a protection order to a gross misdemeanor or a felony. It still requires the state to prove that the bad actor knew of the order and had intent to commit the order, but it strikes the word knowingly, and I found out from the Battered Women's Coalition that we are the only state, I believe, in the country that has the word knowingly there, and there was a court case that made that problematic, so we simply strike that word. The second section that we're dealing with has to do with cell phones and texting of information in this very changing age. Obviously, if there's an order for protection or a no contact order, and someone uses a cell phone to text or to sell, or uses a cell phone to text or to call the petitioner of the order, this is another form of harassment. So it's sort of bringing us up to modern day reality that if you're using a cell phone to harass somebody, that you could be prosecuted for that violation of the order or the no contact order. The third one has to do with this technical language that includes what's called the qualified domestic violence related offense. There's a technical change in that provision, and there's also a technical change in the evidence of conduct, striking the word similar and using the word domestic conduct, which then incorporates other forms of violence besides just physical violence. So it's really just technical matters that came from a number of different court cases. Again, it comes from the County Attorneys Association, Minnesota Coalition for Battered Women. I know of no opposition, and the bill passed out of the Public Safety Committee without opposition. I'd stand for question.
There's no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 1400.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. Seeing no discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. Clerk will close the roll. There being 128 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File 345. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File 345 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to crime victims.
Representative Hilstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Members, this bill makes a change to...
Representative Hilstrom, do you want to replace the House language first?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Hilstrom moving to amend Senate File 345 as introduced as follows. The amendment, delete everything after the enacting clause and insert the language of House File 410, the first engrossment. The amendment is coded DEA 410.
Representative Hilstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is just inserting the House language, and I would ask members for their support to do that. Members, this really is just a clarification that even after a victim has died, that the family or the family representative can request restitution. This is to make sure that perpetrators cannot financially benefit when they have a vulnerable victim who happens to die prior to restitution being ordered. And I'd ask for your support.
Any discussion to the Hilstrom amendment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Bill, the motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There's no other amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File 345 as amended.
Third reading. Any further discussion to the bill? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. Clerk, close the roll. There being 128 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and it's as amended and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day, House File 1470. The clerk will report the bill.
House File 1470 on the calendar for today, an act relating to family law.
Representative Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. House File 1470. So this bill allows the public authority to discontinue child support services and close its cases when all the children of the order are emancipated, or the debt is under $500, or the debt is considered unenforceable by the public authority under certain circumstances, only under certain circumstances. The public authority must notify the parties by mail of the intent to close the child support enforcement case at least 60 days prior to the discontinuation of services. The case must be kept open if the authority receives information prior to the closing that could lead to collection of the debt. If the case is closed, the debtee may request that the case be reopened by completing a new application for service, provided a chance in circumstances would lead to the collection of the debt. I have an amendment to this bill which simply states that instead of the notification going out being sent by first-class mail, it would be in the order of a certified mailing.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Moran moving to amend House File 1470 as follows. The amendment is coded 058.
And members, it's getting pretty loud in here. If you could take your conversations to the alcove or to the retiring room. Representative Moran.
Yes, so just for clarity, this is a really good bill. It's a simple bill, and I ask for a green vote on this bill.
So to the Moran amendment, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Oh, Representative Holbrook, sorry. See, it's too loud in here, Representative Holbrook. Everybody's walking around. It's hard to see you.
Mr. Speaker, I think I have to wear something brighter so you can see me. But anyway, I'd like to thank Representative Moran for this amendment. I think that if we're going to abandon our help in getting child support that's been in arrears, that the person that's trying to get the money should at least have a certified letter. We had this discussion in committee. I'm grateful to see the amendment here today, and I would urge members to support the amendment and the bill.
Seeing no further discussion on the amendment, all in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Motion prevails. There's no other amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 1470 as amended.
Third reading. Any further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. Clerk will close the roll. There being 72 ayes and 56 nays, the bill is passed as amended and is title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 829. The clerk will report the bill.
House File 829, number 1 on the calendar for today, the second engrossment, an act relating to housing.
Representative Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is a rental housing bill, and the bill has been negotiated with the Multi-Housing Association, and the language adopted in the Housing Committee reflects their agreement. Any items that were opposed or in controversy have been removed from the bill, so I'm not aware of any opposition to this bill. The first, it has basically 5 sections, and I'll go over those sections. The first section provides protections for tenants in foreclosed properties. Section 1 deals with the provisions of notice to prospective tenants. The law currently requires that tenants be provided notice that the property they are contemplating leasing is in foreclosure. In 2008, as part of a package of bills dealing with the foreclosure crisis, several bills to address the problems renters faced in foreclosure situations were passed. One of those bills required that a landlord must inform a prospective tenant if the property to be leased was in foreclosure. An exception was contained in the 2000 bill wherein disclosure was not required if the bidder at the sheriff's sale, which would also include a bank, agrees to allow the tenancy to continue for 1 year from the date the lease is signed and no rent prepayments are required. However, the problem with this bill is that, or this statute, is that there is no penalty for failure to disclose the information, the notice requirements. The notice. So the housing advocates have identified numerous failures of landlords to tell prospective clients when the building was in foreclosure. So this section gives the tenants remedy for failure to disclose that the property was in foreclosure when they signed the lease. The remedy is a $500 penalty, and then it has the exception for if the bidder or the bank agrees that the tenant can stay in the property for a year. The second section deals with, it also provides additional protections for tenants in foreclosed properties. This section deals with the rights of tenants living in foreclosed properties. In 2010, Congress passed the Protecting Tenants at Foreclosure Act, which allowed tenants to remain in foreclosed properties for the greater of 90 days beyond the date of the redemption period or the end of the lease. In 2010, the legislature adopted the federal protections, and the federal law and the Minnesota provisions were to sunset in 2012. Congress and this legislature extended those provisions. What this bill does is it makes those protections permanent, allowing tenants to remain in foreclosed properties for the greater of 90 days beyond the end of the redemption period or the end of their lease. And this, the Minnesota Bankers Association, the Minnesota Credit Union, Independent Community Bankers in Minnesota have all been consulted, and none are opposed to the bill. The fourth section deals with the time to appeal. The current appeal period of a decision in a housing court or district court on a landlord-tenant matter is 10 days. Not infrequently, attorneys for both landlords and tenants do not receive the court's decision in a timely enough manner to give the parties the full 10 days to decide whether or not to appeal. And this is mainly helpful to those in greater Minnesota where the mail takes a little longer to get there. So this extends the appeal time from 10 to 15 days to provide sufficient notice. And the last section deals with, it clarifies rent escrow law. And this section is highly technical. There is an anomaly in current law. A tenant wishing to file a tenant remedies action must place rent due in escrow. The statute does not address a situation where rent is not due, and the presumption is that the tenant must still place an amount equal to the rent already paid in escrow. What this bill does is it clarifies that when rent is not due, a tenant may still take an eviction section without having to place rent that is not due in escrow. And I'll give you an example of that. Rent is due on April 1st and it's timely paid on March 31st. On April 5th, the tenant wants to file a TRA for failure to fix a water leak. However, the next rent payment is not due until May 1st. This would allow the tenant to file that TRA without having to pay May 1st rent, which is not then due. And that's the sections. There's some minor technical changes, and I can answer if there's any questions about those.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Franson moving to amend House File 829, the second engrossment as follows. The amendment is coded A2.
Representative Franson.
Thank you, members. I have an amendment here that would benefit farmers in the state of Minnesota. This amendment actually was a bill that I have, but there's a gentleman in my district that has 800 acres of farmland. He lives on the farm with his son and daughter, and he became delinquent in payments due to some health issues, and the bank foreclosed on him. The loan was in essence of $250,000, and right before the redemption happened, the day before, equity strippers came and bought the property for $400,000. The gentleman who owns the farmland got a contract for deed, and he of course had to make those payments. But the payments were higher than he could afford. The land was taken from him, or the contract was taken from him, the contract for deed. Some attorneys that he worked with stopped the cancellation for deed and the eviction. So basically, I just need this amendment currently, the attorneys are arguing for the residents' benefit under 325N, and currently not farms. So legislation is needed to help this farmer in my district and also other farmers in the same boat in the state of Minnesota.
Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise under Rule 3.21. Motions and propositions must be germane. And looking at the piece of legislation of Representative Allen's and the amendment brought by Representative Franson, the sections of law referred to in the amendment 500.24, 325N 117 are not referenced in the bill, which is referencing 504B 151, section 504B 161, and thus while I understand Representative Franson's interest in moving this forward, the amendment does greatly expand the scope of the bill, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, I would ask that you rule it out of order.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Advice?
State your advice.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you. Well, the bill that we are currently on addresses foreclosures, and this amendment that Representative Franson has offered also deals with foreclosures. I would ask that you would find this the point of order from the Madam Majority Leader not well taken. Foreclosures are foreclosures, and folks, this is an easy fix for a lot of for some problems that a lot of farmers are having. I think this is very much germane, and I appreciate your support.
Representative Pepin, what purpose do you rise?
Mr. Speaker, advice?
State your advice.
Mr. Speaker, as Representative Scott said, this amendment is very germane. Right in the definition, it talks about foreclosed homeowner, and looking at subdivision 1 of the bill, it also talks about foreclosure, and so it fits right in there nicely, and this would be the time to discuss the amendment. So I ask you to find the point of order not well taken.
Representative Quam, what purpose do you rise?
For advice.
State your advice.
My advice is that we consider our constituents that live on a farm the same as we consider the constituents that live in a city. And therefore, what's germane for the citizens in the city should be germane for the citizens that call their home a home on the farm.
So having listened to the advice of Representative Murphy, Scott, Pepin, and Quam, having reviewed the amendment and the legislation and the chapters in the statute book, I find that the point of order is well taken.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to appeal the ruling of the chair and ask for a roll call.
There are 10 hands for an appeal of the ruling of the chair and 15 hands for a roll call. The question before the body is whether the ruling of the Speaker shall stand as the judgment of the House. A green vote would support the ruling of the Speaker. A red vote would not. Discussion. Representative Franson.
Advice? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, a foreclosure is a foreclosure, and our farmers are under a lot of economic strain in some regions of the state. This amendment would help the farmers in my district, but I do know that it would help farmers all over the state of Minnesota. Presently, 325N does not include farms, which this amendment intends to cure, as farmers are now being victims of this equity stripping scheme. So I just ask for to appeal the ruling of the Speaker.
Representative Falk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Advice. I just want to say, as a farmer, 2012 was the most profitable year ever for Minnesota farmers. So there's not a whole lot of farmers that are under stress. And typically with ag land, you'd have it. You'd have a separate mortgage for your home ownership or where your home is versus your land that you actually use for production. So I would ask that people support the ruling of the Speaker.
So, seeing no further discussion, again, a green vote would uphold the ruling of the Speaker. A red vote goes against the ruling of the Speaker. The clerk will take the roll. Clerk will close the roll. There being 70 ayes and 59 nays, it is the judgment of the House that the decision of the Speaker shall stand. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 829.
Third reading. Representative Allen.
Members ask for a green vote. This is a good bill. The Legal Aid worked for a number of years on this bill, and the items that are remaining in controversy will be the subject of ongoing discussion between Legal Aid and the Multi-Housing Association over the interim.
Further discussion. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 71 ayes and 59 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 1221. The clerk will report the bill.
House File 1221 on the calendar for today, an act relating to commerce.
Representative Dehn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. House File 1221 is an agency bill from the Department of Commerce. It has two sections to it, primarily technical corrections. The first section is just some miscellaneous technical corrections, and the second portion of the bill makes adjustment to statutory dollar amounts that haven't been changed in over 20 years or longer. There is one section, Section 4, in the first article that references a transfer fee that changes it from $10 to $20. The current fee is referenced in two sections of statute. It's referenced as $10 in statute 82.63, and then it's referenced in statute at 82.57 as $20. And that's actually what the agency has been charging for the past several years. So that's the bill. I'd ask for your support.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 1221.
Third reading. Further discussion to the bill. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 75 ayes and 55 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 1389. The clerk will report the bill.
House File 1389 on the calendar for today, the second engrossment, an act relating to state government.
Representative Kahn.
Mr. Speaker and members, this is essentially a technical bill modifying certain provisions for Minnesota OET and also MEB. I urge you a vote for it. Has the support of both departments and the administration.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Benson M. moving to amend House File 1389, the second engrossment as follows. The amendment is coded A5.
Representative Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. The amendment repeals a repealer in House File 1389. There is a requirement that MMB report to the legislature on the adequacy of budgeted and forecasted defined benefit plan retirement contributions. This was actually only added a few years ago, and in light of the fact that we, in our last report, have a $16 billion liability, and we'll see significant changes to our in our pension bills that will come before this body in the next couple of weeks. I think it's absolutely prudent that we maintain the fact that they give us that report. And I understand that MMB is kind of their requirement in this is that they don't have to do it. So just from the simple fact that they don't think they have the expertise. And my comeback with that is, well, if they can't do a simple report on adequacy of funds for the pensions, and I know that that's somewhat different from what they do, but not terribly different. It's actuarial science, and I'm sure they have somebody on staff. I can't understand it's management and budget, and they have a $60 billion all-funds budget. So members, I think it's prudent that we put back in there that we require it. If some later date we've got all of our pension funds back to above 90% adequately funded, then maybe we take a second look at it. But certainly, given the amount of pension legislation that we're going to introduce here, and the fact that we're $16 billion in liability, we need to keep this in.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Kahn.
Yes, Madam Speaker and members, this MMB does not want this in the bill. These are the reasons why they do not. This is data that's maintained by the pension plans. By posting it on the MMB website, it gives the perception that gives the public the perception that MMB can respond to questions on the data. However, MMB would need to direct questions to the pension plans as they don't have the appropriate expertise to respond to those questions on the data. MMB does not collect or maintain this data. The pension plans have the data and should be the source of this information. They regularly report this information to the Pension Committee, of course, of which you are a member. The collection of this information by MMB would require MMB to collect information that they currently don't collect, since they don't have direct access to the information. So it's certainly more appropriate for the source of the data, i.e. the pension plans, to be responsible for ensuring that this information is available to the public than MMB. So by this, the bill eliminates an unnecessary step, an ineffective step in government, and gives us a streamlining of the governmental process. And I would assume that everyone in the House would prefer that.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Benson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Well, I knew that those were, in my mind at least, the lame excuses for why we should repeal this. But the fact is, we still have a $16 billion liability. The premise of the need for this is that this body, who has to undertake passing legislation to make up the difference if indeed we would continue down the road of unfunded pension funds, we are the people that need to know. So I understand this issue of the public reading the website, and they may have to answer, but in fact, the real crux of this is that they report to us and that we fully understand the position and the problems that we have in our pension funds. So, members, Madam Speaker, I'd like to roll call this. I would ask for a green vote.
Representative Benson requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Discussion. The member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the author of the bill yield to a question?
She will. Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm curious. I seem to recall at least a few occasions in which we have had to bail out a pension, be it teachers or a different pension. Can you let me know how many in the last 4 years that we've had to put funds into?
Representative Kahn.
The most serious one was the Minneapolis Teachers Plan, where when we merged it into TRA. It usually comes when we take an independent plan, and one of the things that we've discovered as we do this is that their problems were usually due to problems in state law. As for the requirement that all these plans should be 90% or 100% funded, that's the worst possible case we could get to, because that's the case where you get demands for new benefits and people believing they can give new benefits. It's much more easy to give new benefits than to require the plans to be responsible. We are now in the, I guess I would yield to Representative Murphy for what's going on in the current bill, but a certain amount of aid is being given to St. Paul and also to Duluth. Every time this happens, it's interesting to know is that the plan itself from its members requires increased contributions. If you look at national pension plan statistics, Minnesota is one of the best of all states in terms of keeping our pension plans on track and without liabilities that are impossible to manage. And when you have, when you're asking MMB to do something that they say they are not the right person to do, and the information is completely available. I would suggest, I don't know if you've attempted to get it from the pension plans, or I would also suggest that you deal with the pension commission staff, who are probably some of the best people in state government who can give you any of this information you want. And the thought that there's some advantage to putting it on a website when the people who manage that website say they can't manage it effectively just makes no sense.
Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative. I appreciate that, and I appreciate that Minnesota is above the average in its responsibilities, although I do fear that there are many places where they below average that actually have had to go file bankruptcy or go through some very severe situations, and I would think it'd be prudent to have some sort of a automatic reporting, because, you know, frankly, the bill comes up and I'm not on the committee. I don't want to have to do a internet search to try and determine with my own expertise, especially when I've got a 24-hour limit to a amendment period in order to come up with something to try and improve. So I would feel more comfortable if, instead of just a repealer, that if there's not the expertise, that we select someone that did have the expertise, because having us informed ahead of time would be prudent. And so these are long-range things that I'd like to have a long-range and continual analysis. So I would support this amendment on the prudence and also avoiding a mistake.
Representative Kahn.
Well, Madam Speaker, Representative Quam, I don't know if you heard what I said. I said you can get more information than you could possibly ever want by going to the staff of the Pension Commission. And they're located right in the, on the same floor as you take the tunnel to get over here. They're very, very helpful. They will give you an incredible amount of information. The general public can get it from the pension plans websites, and also, I think if you're worried about your constituents not knowing how to get to it, I would suggest that you put the pension commission staff website on your reports, and that would be much more helpful to them than to have MMB have a website notation that they have already told us they cannot maintain adequately.
The member from Anoka, Representative Runbeck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to suggest to Representative Kahn that the Pension Commission is possibly the same folks that are currently telling us we've got an 8% assumed rate of return in our pension funds. And I think nearly everybody who comments about the state of pension funds is going to tell you that's a lie. We've got built into our statutes an absolute lie. And if, frankly, $16 billion of unfunded liability may be more like $32 billion when you take a look at what might be the more actual rate of return. Thank you.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I apologize, Representative Kahn. I meant to use the word independent because that's what MMB is meant to be. In fact, their mission for us is to give an independent view on all of these agencies. And if I wanted to just trust the agency or the group that is doing the pensions, then I wouldn't need to have the budget line item for MMB to have this oversight. Because just like I have people proofread what I write, if I'm going to submit something to a paper, it's prudent to have an outside person look at it. And so I apologize for not including independent in my comments.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Benson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Or Speaker, I probably should just have let this one lie and we could take the vote. It's going to be what it's going to be. But members, this is really a prudent step. Can imagine the news in terms of the legislature doesn't want a report by the MMB on the state of the finances in our pensions. We have thousands of employees and ex-employees, retired employees that are counting on these pensions funds. And we're going to make a decision not to get a report that we could easily get and they're qualified to do. And Representative Kahn, I find it hard to believe in your statement you made that it's better that they are underfunded so they don't come back looking for better benefits. You know, that's amazing. Only from the standpoint of it gets to the heart of this body never showing any restraint. In fact, my experience on the Pension Commission for the very first time is we didn't have a market problem that got us into this trouble. What we had is a problem that the people at the Commission could never say no. So we were always at the forefront of giving benefits and never making sure that we were taking care of the people who ultimately depend upon these to live. This is not a prudent step. We need to leave the report in at least for the next couple of years till we see how we get through the next couple of years with the legislation I'm sure that's going to be passed on this floor in the next couple of weeks to make sure that these people will have the pension that they're going to rely on. So Representative Kahn, I appeal to you to accept this amendment so that we can get on to voting.
Representative Kahn.
If we believe in effectiveness in government, we believe that information should come from those who are capable of giving the information. MMB has said that the only way they would deal with it is to go back to the people people who are experts on pensions. And we did make some adjustments. We changed the assumption rate from in the last session from 8.5 to 8. This was in a bill that was passed by the previous legislature and signed by the governor. So far, I believe in the returns that we have, they're hovering along this year at about 10. One of the problems is with pensions is that it's not contributions that's the most important. It's the investment portfolio that's the most important. And in the current investment bill, in the current pension bill, we've actually asked for some more reporting and more information to the plans that are have the most trouble with their investment return, to give them some better information. So we should see some better accountability. We should see more funds investing with the state investment board after this investment comes out to them. And I've been on and off the pension board for a pension commission for a long time, and one of the things that you do discover is that 100% funding is not a good position to be in when you're trying to turn down a request for benefits. And that's the one that was the steps that put some of these funds into the problems they're having now. But all these problems are solvable, and we don't make them more solvable by putting extra work that is meaningless into the system.
The member from Anoka, Representative Abler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I keep doing that. I wasn't paying a lot of attention just till the discussion got going here. And I actually looked up the report that we want to repeal. And I think I just say don't shoot the messenger. I think this is a really good report. And I don't know why you wouldn't want to know adequacy of the various pension funds. Maybe, Madam Speaker, Representative Kahn would yield for a question.
She will. Representative Abler.
I believe this is put together by Representative Lanning, who is known to be thoughtful and actually very interested in the welfare of the state employees and whoever else is funded by pensions. Can you just tell me why you wouldn't just improve upon this report to fix whatever defects you found in it rather than just repeal the whole thing and not have this information at all?
Representative Kahn.
Madam Speaker and Representative Abler, well, since you said you just came in on the conversation, I guess you didn't hear what I said. What I said is that MMB does not promote the information, so if they were to put it on their website, they would have no ability to verify it except by going to the pension funds. It is completely available for the pension funds. There is an actuarial study, an actuarial report done on the pension funds, which is also available. MMB said they do not feel comfortable having a report on their website where, in order to verify the data, they would have to go back to the sources. They would rather have people going to the basic source. And it was not, this was not a proposition from Representative Lanning. This was something that Representative Benson had added by amendment.
Representative Abler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Seeing no further discussion to the amendment, the clerk will take the roll on the amendment. The clerk will close the roll. There being 60 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 1389.
Third reading. Discussion. The member from Mille Lacs, Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would Representative Kahn yield to a question?
She will. Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Kahn, would you explain to us why it is that this Office of Technology, which I know you and I were part of the original creation of, or at least refining of, would need a commissioner at this point?
Representative Kahn.
It's just the person who is the head of it, who has done an amazingly good job. From any reports I have from the agencies who had every reason to conflict with her, is doing the work of a commissioner, and so she ought to be called a commissioner.
Further discussion. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 74 ayes and 56 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 938. The clerk will report the bill.
House File 938. On the calendar for today, the first engrossment, an act relating to state government.
The member from Candy Ojai, Representative Sawatzky.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this bill is a report streamlining bill from the Department of Administration. The Department's mission is to review statutes that are redundant or obsolete, and so this consists of two areas. The first one is from to eliminate the publication of the Minnesota Milestones Report, which is a report on a series of performance measures. The last time that this report was filed was in 2002, and then a partial report was filed in 2011. And the second part of this bill indicates the elimination of the publication of the Directory of State Agency Services. This is a report or a publication that needs to be published every 4 years. The last time it was produced was in 2004 to 2007 time period. This is a publication of over 300 pages and is considered obsolete or outdated the minute that it is produced. And so, but that information has been added to the North Star online program, and that was statutorily created in 1997. And so the information is available electronically, and for those that would like to see paper and pencil type publications, it is available as well in the Secretary of State Legislature Blue Book manual, and also in the blue pages of the phone book. And so with that, I would appreciate a support for 938.
There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Mason moving to amend House File 938, the first engrossment as follows. The amendment is coded A3.
The member from Dakota, Representative Mason.
Madam Speaker, members, Minnesota no longer has a planning agency or even a strategic and long-range planning agency. That was done away with in 2003. And I firmly believe that we should have a set of standards that every Minnesota knows about and can understand, and something that transcends all administrations. And in 2010, we did pass legislation, we had to do it without any money, that did bring back the Minnesota milestones and incorporated some other planning aspects. So I feel very strongly about taking away or tearing down the legislative foundation that addresses a proper way to have standards. Even if we can't fully fund everything right now, I think it's important that we maintain that. And I do want to mention that there was a trilateral budget commission that met in around 2006, and one of their recommendations was that we had a planning agency. So again, that was the reason for what we did in 2010. I would encourage your support of this bill, and I also would like to thank Representative Sawatzky for her willingness to work on this further. Again, if you would vote for the amendment. Thank you.
Members, if you could take your conversations out of the House and into the alcoves in the retiring room. Representative Sawatzky.
Madam Speaker, I concur with Representative Mason. We are working on, presently there are not considered the Minnesota milestones is in place right now in the statute, but what we would like to do is work together over the interim and have better language for this bill. So I would accept that amendment.
Seeing no further discussion to the amendment, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Sanders moving to amend House File 938, the first engrossment as follows. The amendment is coded A4.
The member from Anoka, Representative Sanders.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this amendment, in the spirit of the bill with reforming government, streamlining government, deals with consolidation and management of our motor pool in the state. What it does is it moves the motor pool, the state fleet, under the Commissioner of Management and Budget, where they will be responsible for conducting an inventory, establishing a process of consolidation, minimum use criteria for state-owned or lease-owned vehicles, as well as for maintenance facilities and fueling facilities, and establishes policies for guidelines for vehicle acquisition, use, and maintenance. And what this does, and I've been talking about this for several years now, but what this also does really is establish a process by which the Commissioner then will report back to the legislature on the findings every biennium, and every department's fleet manager would also review those annually, and also requires an audit to make sure that those records are done correctly. So this really is an excellent amendment that helps us move towards transparency in our state fleet, as well as consolidation, and make sure that we are optimizing our state fleet for our citizens. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Carlson.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, I'd like to rise to a point of order under 4.03. This particular amendment carries with it a cost. I have a fiscal note here that dealt with an earlier bill with the same author last biennium, House File 1036. And it shows in that fiscal note that there would be a cost of $172,000 each year of the biennium, and this amendment is virtually the same. So, Madam Speaker, 4.03, paragraph H.
Representative Carlson raises a point of order under Rule 4.03H. Representative Sanders.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Advice.
State your advice.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, although the language is similar, this amendment was constructed with House research to be as flexible as possible, and it does not actually mandate any reductions or mandate any necessarily changes to that. But what it does is establish that process. And if you look down in lines 2.11, we say that the Commissioner may delegate to other agencies and authorities. So there's a lot of flexibility built into this amendment. We've taken out all of the actual charges from what I remember from the bill from the last time that were actual duties that did require costs. I don't have the fiscal note in front of me, but again, we did write this amendment with House research to be as flexible as possible, just to establish a process and not necessarily mandating any reductions or mandating that they do much more other than inventory and provide us with a report to the legislature.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Carlson.
Madam Speaker, further advice. The amendment requires the Department of Administration to consolidate an agency vehicle fleet management and maintenance program, and there is no appropriation. And last biennium, they said it would take at least one FTE to do that. This is a good example why a bill should have been introduced and it should have been referred to a fiscal committee. So I would hope that the Speaker would take my point of order well taken.
Advice. Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Advice.
State your advice.
Just something to be considered as part of the rules is with the Democrats in total control of the state, there is now a limitless amount of money apparently available for government. So I really see no reason to have expenditure limits with all these resources available. And you can safely rule the point of order not well taken.
Having listened to the advice of Representative Carlson, Representative Sanders, and Representative Garofalo, I find the point of order is well taken. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 938 as amended.
Third reading. Seeing no further discussion to the bill, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 73 ayes and 57 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 1138. The clerk will report the bill.
House File 1138 on the calendar for today, an act relating to the military.
The member from Anoka, Representative Newton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. House File 1138 has to do with the military court system. The state of Minnesota has the Minnesota Court of Military Justice, and it hasn't kept pace with the federal Uniform Code of Military Justice. And so what this bill does is it aligns the Minnesota Code with the federal code. The only major change, two major changes that we have, is one, it gives the governor the authority to delegate to a general officer general court-martial authority. And the other change is that it permits anyone who is charged with the court-martial to make an appeal to the federal or to the state courts of appeal. But that's essentially what the bill is. Thank you.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 1138.
Third reading. Discussion. The member from Stearns, Representative Howe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I rise in support. This actually brings us in line and eliminates some confusion that we have in the National Guard system, and brings us back in line with the reserves and the active component, and eliminates a lot of confusion that we have from the M-Day soldiers. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion to the bill, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 130 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File 1291. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File 1291, number 9 on the calendar for today, the first engrossment, an act relating to mines.
The member from Itasca, Representative Anzelc.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker and members, this bill deals with the St. Louis County Board of Commissioners and mine inspections. The county board has been providing inspections of our mining operations on the Iron Range since 1905. This bill makes several technical changes. It passed the Senate without any dissent. I stand for questions and ask for your support.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File 1291.
Third reading. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 130 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Reports from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration.
Report from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration. Murphy E. for the Committee on Rules, pursuant to Rules 121 and 333, designates the following bills to be placed on the calendar for the day for Wednesday, May 1st, 2013. House File Number 1120, Senate File Number 887, House File Numbers 947 and 1113, Senate File Number 541, and House File Number 681.
Announcements by the Speaker.
Announcement by the Speaker. The Speaker announces the appointment of the following members of the House to a conference committee on Senate File 745. Simon, Scott, and Winkler.
Motions and resolutions. There's a copy of the non-controversial motions and resolutions at the House desk and online. If there is no objection, we will take action on those motions first. Hearing no objection, those motions prevail.
Introduction of House Resolution Number 5 by Erickson, Doubt, Murphy M., Faust, and Myra. A House resolution recognizing May 2nd, 2013 as the Day of Prayer in Minnesota. The resolution is being referred to the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration.
Announcements. The member from Mauer, Representative Poppy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to announce that Wednesday, May 1st, in addition to it being May Day, is the Bob Gunther Party Day. We will have the I-90 party on Wednesday evening at Kellogg Square. It begins at 5:30, and for those of you who have not attended, it's really an enjoyable event. For $5, you get a really good pork chop, you get some other delights from southern Minnesota, and we welcome all people to come. So we have a House and Senate bipartisan gathering, and it is Wednesday, May 1st, which is just in a couple of days. So hopefully people can attend. Thank you.
Representative Doubt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the Majority Leader yield for a question?
She will. Representative Doubt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Majority Leader, we know that the House is not meeting in session tomorrow. Wondering if the leadership in the DFL, the House, the Senate, and the Governor will be meeting to come up with targets for the conference committees.
Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and Representative Doubt. Thank you for that question. And in order to complete our work this session, that's going to have to happen.
Representative Doubt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would she continue to yield?
She will yield again. Representative Doubt.
Thank you. Madam Majority Leader, can you give us an idea of when that will be happening? When will the committee chairs have those targets? When will those decisions be made? And where and when will those meetings take place to determine those targets?
Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and Representative Doubt. It will happen soon, I'm certain, since there are just 3 weeks left of the session. Gratefully, last week, we were able to finish the budget bills on the floor of the Minnesota House of Representatives, and I think the Senate is taking up their tax bill today. So here at the very end of April, the start of May, the budget bills are through both bodies of the House and Senate, and we will go into conference committee, and the Governor, the members of the House and the Senate will be getting together to figure out joint targets, which is one of the important pieces of work we have left to do before we can complete the work of this session on time.
Representative Doubt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would she yield for another question?
She will yield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and Representative Murphy. I know there are conference committees that are starting to actually meet tomorrow. Do you know how soon we can expect those targets, when the chairs might have those? Will this actually happen tomorrow?
Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative Doubt. I don't think that it will be done tomorrow, but I am happy to continue to talk with you both here in this forum and offline as the work continues for Minnesotans.
Representative Doubt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would she yield for another question?
She will. Representative Doubt.
Thank you. And I appreciate that, Representative Murphy. Obviously we strive for transparency, and we want to make sure that we're very efficiently conducting the people's business here in St. Paul. Can you just give me maybe a brief outline of how you think this process is going to unfold? What will this look like to get us to a point where we do have targets for the committee, for the conference committees?
Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative Doubt. I understand that the leaders from the various bodies and the chairs of the committees and the chairs of the conference committees will be working toward the end goal, which is to finish the budget on time for Minnesota. And between now and then, we will have to meet and determine those targets. But, I know you want a specific date. I don't have a specific date for you. I can say with, a lot of clarity that I don't believe there'll be a government shutdown, as there were 2 years ago. So somewhere between now and May 20, I think we will have those targets. But most importantly, I think this legislature has been working, with a fair amount of efficiency and also with a fair amount of humility in getting its work done for the people of Minnesota, and that will continue.
Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Murphy, thank you again for the information. I know we've got conference committees. A couple of them have been posted, and we'll have conference committees starting to meet now. I guess one last question, if she would yield.
She will. Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Murphy, can you give me an idea? I think what we're concerned about is that we want to make sure that the public and, of course, the members of the minority have enough notice for the conference committee meetings. Can you kind of outline how the process will take place for notifying both the public and the minority members on when and where the conference committees will be taking place?
Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative Dowd. As we talked last Friday, the meetings for the conference committees will be posted on the Minnesota House of Representatives website, and that is an opportunity, of course, for the public to track those meetings and where they will be and when they will meet, and that is our usual fashion. And I think as we have continued to do all session, you and I, the Speaker, Representative Sanders, Representative Loon, and others will continue to meet to talk about that in a more interpersonal way as well.
Announcements. The member from Meeker, Representative Erdahl.
Still going?
Representative Dowd, I wasn't sure if you were still done or...
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I just wanted to thank Representative Murphy. I know I said that was the last question, and I'm not going to ask another one, but I would just encourage you to let me know on the process for determining the targets, the joint targets for the conference committee. Of course, we're interested in how and where and when that process will take place. So if you could just keep us posted on that, I would appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Announcements. The member from Meeker, Representative Erdahl.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Actually, I have a question for Representative Murphy.
She will yield. Representative Erdahl.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Murphy, you mentioned that all the major budget bills were going to be cleared by May 1st. Well, there's one important money bill left out there that I'm still curious about. And would you please relate to us the status of the legacy bill?
Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative Erdahl. It's so nice to talk to you on the floor. We're still working on it.
Announcements. Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm getting my exercise here on the floor today. I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 10 a.m. Wednesday, May 1st, 2013.
Representative Murphy moves that when the House adjourned today, it adjourn until 10 a.m. Wednesday, May 1st, 2013. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion prevails. Announcement by the Speaker.
Announcement by the Speaker. Speaker announces the following change in membership of the Conference Committee on Senate File 745. Delete the name of Winkler and add the name of Lesh.
Representative Murphy.
I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Murphy moves that the House do now adjourn. All in favor say aye. All opposed no. Motion prevails. The House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. Wednesday, May 1st, 2013.